All right, I'd like to call the Village of Cottage Grove Village Board of Trustees to order on Monday, July 15th. It is 6:30 on my watch. We are in the Village Hall as well as on Zoom. So with that, we have a quorum. The agenda is properly posted, and we'll start with a Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next then is public appearances. This is public's opportunity to speak on any subject. If you are from the public, we just wish you share your name, your address, your municipality, and hold your comments to no more than 3 minutes so we can capture that for the public record. So with that, I'll be quiet. Anybody on the Zoom or in the room, feel free to speak up. Move on from the awkward silence. Sorry, got to laugh a little bit here. Next then we have discuss and consider meeting minutes from a regular board meeting held on July 1st. Any questions, comments, or edits in regards to the meeting minutes as presented?
I would make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
I'd second.
All right, we have a motion second then. Any other discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. Next, we'll slide down to unfinished business and start off with discuss and consider amending the developer's agreement for the Amazon.com Services LLC. Rick, you can start us off?
Sure. So there's a memo in the packet. Basically, a few years ago, the village approved a development agreement with Amazon in TID 10. They're still planning on moving forward with the project. But they wanted to make just a few changes given the length of time that's passed since the original one. I guess the biggest change would be the original agreement said that they had to have their assessed value guarantee of $245 million by 2026. This bumps it back to 2028. And there are also some changes regarding the financial security instrument they put forward for the public improvements. So there are a lot of public improvements that they have to construct for the site. We still feel comfortable that there's enough security, either whatever form they use for making sure that those public improvements get done. So I know there's been some turnover when the original agreement was signed or approved, but basically the way the deal is structured is they have an assessed value guarantee of $245 million. They will get 80% of any of the property taxes that they pay towards the project, so that comes back as the development incentive. So the village isn't taking out any debt for the project or for any of these payments. It's not going to be using any general tax levy monies for it. Basically, the only way that the development incentive gets paid is if Amazon pays their property taxes, and then a certain portion comes back through the municipal revenue obligation. So basically, there's no financial risk to the village in that regard. So I guess any questions about the amendment or happy to try to answer them.
Yeah, I had a question. So the delay is 2 years. What predicated that? I mean, obviously they're a little behind. 2 years seems like an awful lot.
Yeah, there is a representative from Amazon here, so we can.
Jason, you want to come up and you can share your thoughts? Yep, you got it.
I would love to. Hi, Jason Vanglis. I lead economic development and expansion in the central U.S. for Amazon. Our offices here in Madison are on 1245 East Washington Ave. Yeah, the 2 year delay, I think, is a couple of things. One, this project came at kind of the back end of the pandemic when we saw the expansion of our network really kind of grow overnight. We spent about $70 billion over that period of time, doubling the size of our network. As that demand kind of waned a little bit, that allowed our business to kind of figure out what is the dynamics of the demand currently across our network and where do our priorities kind of lie. And so for about a 12 to 16 month period of time across our network, we saw projects get canceled or just delay. And this project was part of that sort of dynamic look at our network and what made sense and what didn't. The benefit with this project is we already own the land, we control that, and so that gives us a lot of opportunity. And so what we saw in the last kind of 6 to 12 months with this project is kind of a really solid look at our network, and maybe a little bit more information than you need, but happy to provide it regardless, which is that we regionalized our network. So before, when you would purchase something from Amazon, it might come from Phoenix. It was how quickly can we get it to you? Now, it's a 6 to 8 kind of regionalized market, and so it's going to come kind of within a 4 to 5 state region, and so it's going to come kind of within that network, and so that shift is the sort of second component of the delay. Initially it was one large network, and then it was sort of shrunk down into 6 to 8 different kind of geographic regions.
Jason, correcting any of this, of course, if I'm misspeaking. One thing worth noting is it does feel like it's been delayed maybe longer than it actually has, so that the previous the agreement that's in front to be amended was originally approved by the board last summer. So
right.
It hasn't been maybe as long as the perception is. The other thing is if, and Jason, maybe you could speak to possible timing of moving forward with ground, mass grading and things like that for the project. But if they were to move forward in earnest, they still could meet that initial or come real close to it, that 2026 assessment guarantee. The 2028 gives them a little bit more flexibility, and at the end of the day, that the TID will cash flow just fine and everything like that. So.
Yeah, I think our development partners, Josh and Abby, are online, so I'll let them speak to the timeline related to construction projects. They're certainly much more knowledgeable than I am.
Sure, thank you, Jason. Josh Hoffman with Trammell Crow Company. The adjusted timeline is really a reflection of where we stand today. We're currently anticipating breaking ground in September of this year. Generally speaking, it'll take us about 2 years to construct the facility proper, and then another year to get it fully up and running with all the internal improvements and material handling equipment. So the 2028 adjustment was intended to reflect the actual timeline that we're anticipating to deliver the project in the field.
The dynamics of the projects remain the same. The capital investment is still $200 million in that range, and then up to 1,500 new jobs created as a result of this project.
Any other questions regarding the developers agreement amendment?
I'll make a motion that we approve the amended development agreement as presented with Amazon.com Services LLC.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second then. Any other discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor then? Aye. Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jason. Thank you. Next then, discuss and consider the final drafts of the communication plan, Revelation PR. Somebody, yep, there he is. Yes. And then just push the buttons when you get ready. Don't break it.
All right, thanks everyone for having me back. I'm looking forward to talking about this draft or possibly final version of the communications plan. When I made this presentation, I didn't realize how long your agenda was tonight, so I will try to be as fast as possible. This is what I plan to talk about. So, it was our intention when we drafted this plan to create basically a cookbook with recipes on communications, with steps like step 1, dice an onion. It was not our intent to say step 1, peel an onion, step 2, take off the stems, step 3, go 1/4 inch, dice. But after seeing everyone's feedback and questions, we certainly provided more details in this iteration of the plan, but not to the point that we didn't want to pigeonhole people who are following this plan. We wanted to make sure that they still have wiggle room to execute the tactics based on the exact situation. I do want to talk about a few of those tactics that had a little bit more feedback than others. So first was the community engagement. just for reference, my firm, we work with the Wisconsin Department of Transportation on public involvement, and we do things like broad public engagement, such as public meetings, like the ones we helped last year with the Emergency Services Station. Those are great, but we also want to make sure that we are proactive with our outreach, especially to reach underrepresented populations. So this is why, on behalf of the Interstate, US 51 North, and US 51 South projects, we attended events such as a Disability Pride Festival, a Juneteenth celebration, and this is us 2 weeks ago at the Monona Community Festival. So this would be a type of event that we'd recommend that staff attend to engage the community. And so, as you can see here, we have displays of the 3 projects, we have handouts, and then tchotchkes. So that was another point that people brought up, what to give out. Really, it can be anything. In this particular case, we gave out candy and little measuring tape keychains from the DOT, but you'll see in the communications plan, we gave some ideas and some pricing for those various tchotchkes to give out. Who's staffing these? It could be people from Public Works, it could be from Parks and Rec, it could be the trustees. So for example, after John towels off after the dunk tank on Saturday, he can go staff a table at the the business event going on Saturday, right? It's just simple. You could take a 2-hour shift or whatever it is and just go there and engage the community about projects. Second, social media. So as you know from the plan, we developed various target audiences and tailored all the strategies and tactics for every audience. And so for the younger population, we want to make sure to reach them on their channel, which in this case is going to be Instagram. So one of the things we recommended is to use relaxed or trending language, because that's what these young folks use IRL, or in real life. So what we did was we presented some examples of that. Here's one. This is not a real post, but we took this survey reminder post and added language, "Don't ghost us." So my apologies to JJ, because now you're going to have to like brush up on all these terms to be hip. Sorry, they don't use that term either. So this is just an example. One other thing is just, this is a collection of various tactics that we're recommending. So last week I was in the village of Whitefish Bay to run a community engagement project, and we did a lot of the same things we did for the meetings last year for the emergency services station. So we did social media posts, social media events, press release, newsletter articles, and then we also posted flyers around the community. In this particular case, we did yard signs. That's effective in that community, but for the Cottage Grove, we are recommending direct mailers because I feel that's more effective based on what our studies are. But then other points I want to make out here are that we created internal talking points. That's part of our recommendations, so that everyone was on the same page in terms of how to talk about the project. And then finally, we also translated documents into Spanish. Now, Whitefish Bay is somewhat similar to Cottage Grove in terms of the amount of Spanish-speaking population. And even though it's small, if a municipality truly wants to maximize community representation, you have to be as inclusive as possible. So even if it helps 5 people or 10 people, you're trying not to be exclusive in terms of outreach. So those are the rationale for our recommendations. One tool I want to talk about is AI. We got a lot of questions and feedback about that. So in our interviews and our audit of the communications for the village of Cottage Grove, we learned that perhaps the average citizen is not fully aware of what's going on in their own community. There's not a large attendance at these events, for example. So why not summarize what's going on and push that out there as much as possible? Well, that takes a lot of staff time. So to fill that, we said, why not use AI? So what we did is we took a previous meeting, and what we did was we asked AI to transcribe it and then make social media posts out of it. So let me read one to you. The village is working to upgrade its security camera systems across municipal buildings and parks. About $60,000 was budgeted to implement a modernized integrated camera network that allows better monitoring capabilities. Improving security is a priority to protect taxpayer assets. That's true, right? That actually happened. So in seconds, AI was able to create 4 social media posts out of it. Now, I would just take this and maybe humanize it slightly more and say, improving security is a priority for this community. You know, that rolls off the tongue a little bit better. But again, it saves a lot of time to just generate these posts. And then they can be posted on social media, newsletters, news flashes, etc. On the right-hand side of the screen, we also asked it to transcribe it into Spanish. A concern was, how accurate is this? So first of all, it's supposed to be much more accurate than Google Translate, which typically just does a literal translation. AI actually understands the human language a little bit better. And from what I've understood and seen personally is that Spanish speakers will say that this is, I hate to give a number, like 99% accurate in that everything is correct. It's just that a certain sentence may not be normally said that way, but you get the gist of it if you were to read it. So that should help alleviate some concerns about the accuracy of these translations. Last slide here is just talk about the standard operating procedures, is that this is where we put everything together, all the ideas in order, but they don't have to be completely followed. It just depends on the situation. So something happens in here, oh, we gotta tell the world about it. So let's start with internal talking points, make sure everyone's on the same page, and then we can use AI to create a news flash, for example. If it warrants telling even more people, let's get a press release out, but that's up to you. Is that security camera system worth it? Maybe. How about that MOU with MG? Probably. So those are things that you would decide internally, say, yes, we got to get this out to the media. And then let's get that on social media. Let's get this to our partners. Let's write a little blurb and give it to the Chamber of Commerce, for example. So these are our steps, but again, we made it so there's some wiggle room depending on the situation. So just moving forward is that we are happy to answer future questions, especially as people dive deeper into this and start executing it. It's a lot of stuff. Some of them are just updates of current procedures. Some are completely new. So don't feel like you have to do all this together at once. Take it step by step and start to integrate it into the normal operations of the village communications. And then again, we'll be ready and willing to help along the way. I'm happy to entertain questions. I know I speak really quickly, so I'm happy to go over anything again.
Any questions from board members?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So will there be a person that will proofread it before the AI just submits a newsletter or email?
Thanks for asking that. So a question about proofing. So what we typically recommend is, since a human is asking AI to generate these social media posts, then there's that human, I'm sorry, probably JJ in this case, to do that last line of look, to say, this is good, copy and paste, and put it in social media. So in this case, he would be the one to do the final proofing and make sure of accuracy. And then outside of that, we wrote this plan so that if and when the village does hire a communications manager, that person would do that.
In the absence of a communication manager right now, does staff have an idea of how they would implement this and what kind of benchmarks they would be looking for? I know you didn't include like SMART objectives in the plan, but I was wondering if staff had an idea.
High level, looking through the plan, there's priority 1 and priority 2, so we'd be able to handle probably 80+% of priority 1 with existing staff. Maybe some of priority, we could be strategic on finding some things within priority 2, but probably certainly the majority of priority 2 items we would probably not take on until a communications manager or similar position. As far as metrics, I think getting a baseline of currently whatever our stats are on the website, on social media, as far as page views and likes and comments and across all of our platforms, and getting an idea of what that is. And then, I don't know what a reasonable goal would be for increasing engagement, but I think a lot of it is just at first keeping track of the data so we have something to look at, especially if we're gonna increase what we're doing. I wouldn't necessarily say right off the bat that we'd be altering some of what we're doing, but not, I think a lot of the bulk of this plan would be that priority 2. One example to mention that is something that would be a little bit of a staff lift, but I think would add a lot of value that would be worthwhile pursuing, would be an electronic newsletter. We could acquire the email addresses. We'd have to pay for it. I don't know the cost off the top of my head, but acquire that through voter registration, and obviously allow residents an opportunity to unsubscribe if they don't want it. But that would be a direct emailer, and then in addition have QR codes and things like that. So that would be a newsletter that, maybe we don't commit to monthly right away without a communications person, but something we could do certainly quarterly or bi-monthly, kind of build a following that way.
Yeah, if I may reiterate Matt's points, thank you. So as you can see, we did develop the plan for with or without communications manager, knowing that some things take on more time to do. And then also we calculated what metrics needed to be measured and then listed them in the plan. And then again, back to my example, we didn't put so much detail in to say, well, we feel that you should be experiencing 10% growth. We wanted you all to sort of feel that out to determine what, let's say, year-over-year growth would be good. Typically, just FYI on the side, is that we're typically looking at things on a quarterly basis to see, is it making improvements? If not, how can we modify the tactics to trend in the right direction? So that might be as simple as on social media, posting at different times of day, for example.
You know, as I look at the Word document that was attached, you know, and it really spells out the tactics and the priorities for these strategies, there's a lot here. I mean, are you confident staff can handle some of this? And how would we go about executing any of this without, you know, somebody to actually manage it?
We're doing, maybe not to a T, but we're doing the majority of priority 1 now. So I think some of it is
Slightly
maybe
modified,
better,
yep.
slightly modifying, and maybe we need to better sell what we're doing. But yeah, I think we can handle the majority lift of priority 1. I just don't want to, you know, oversell and underdeliver on anything above and beyond that without additional staff.
So do you envision like working through priority 1 over the next year and then revisiting the communication manager position for the 2026 budget?
Yeah,
I mean, is it something that we should possibly consider?
I guess I'll, you know, gather feedback from the board as to, you know, how much of a priority that is. I mean, we probably don't have the levy capacity to add the position
Can we expect?
without making sacrifices, you know,
Right.
elsewhere.
Can we expect like quarterly updates from staff then on the plan and how, and metrics?
We can work through. I mean, I don't see why we couldn't put together some update quarterly on communications.
I think in addition to the metrics, if I may add, is that we're hoping is that you see the end result of stuff. For example, sure, we're looking at impressions and readership and all that kind of stuff, but did more people get engaged in a potential XYZ project, right? That's what you want to see at the end of the day. Were more people generally aware of this and had some understanding and could decide either way, right? That's what you want at the end of the day, and those metrics, of course, help you along the way, but we're looking for that at the end.
You know,
I
when
mean,
you
I think
look
half
at,
the battle is building a template for what that quarterly report would look like, because I feel like there's a lot that we're doing that, you know, if we weren't mindful in how that was put together, I think a lot of things would be missed. So I think we just have to think through and get some feedback from you guys as to what you'd want to see in a report too. So, you know, feel free to let us know that. And yeah.
it just seems like a big jump to me when I look at everything under tactics under Priority 1 or Strategy 1. There's just a lot of things to be done, and there's a lot of work to do it. And the question really is, if it's about awareness, you know, is a monthly newsletter from the village a better way to start versus taking on all these incremental channels to manage? I mean, I totally get we want the awareness, we want the engagement, but if the priority is awareness, I think there's simpler ways to begin. You know, walk before we run, I guess, is where I'm at.
I don't disagree. I think it's a combination of figuring out, you know, which tactics will work better than others, and also staffing, right?
Yeah, I mean, as long as everyone understands the scope of what we, you know, have to work with as far as resources, and we're mindful of that, and you know, have a good understanding of what your guys' expectations are.
And some of these, like Hootsuite, did I say that right? It sounds like does a lot of the work for you, is that right? I mean, I maybe don't understand what all of this means. Includes social listening. I don't know, what does that mean? I'll ask instead of trying to
Oh,
guess.
sure. So based on our interviews with the department heads, we learned that we were learning about the process for people to submit content for social media to JJ. And we thought that does work, but another way that could be more helpful is having it all in one dashboard, electronic dashboard, so that all users could see, oh, okay, Parks and Rec is asking for this. Public Works is asking for this. So I know where everyone is in terms of what they're requesting. And then it also has a secondary feature so you can hear what people are talking about within the community, which is also important too, to listen.
Would it be helpful for everyone to, in the next month or two, JJ, Ing, and I provide like a, here's how we would plan to implement priority 1 for the rest of the year, kind of our interpretation of it, kind of an action plan within priority 1, have the board take a look at that and we get feedback and kind of go that way. Because it is just, plan with guidelines. I don't, saying we're going to work on priority items in priority 1, if there's a tactic that we're not doing in any given month, it's not, I don't think the plan was drafted to be, punitive, where it's like, hey, JJ, you missed this tactic this month, that's a,
Right.
Demerit.
Correct. And again, like I said before, we're looking at the larger picture of how people were engaged in certain projects or initiatives, et cetera.
And just a recognition that we didn't have, good written systems in place, and this gets, half the battle's getting
Right, it documents everything now.
something written down.
And that's a great point too. Worst case, huge turnover of staff. We've lost, the history of how to do things. It's now documented.
I think it's a good starting place, and exactly, it's a good place to document what we're doing. Other things that we can add as staff time allows, which may be variable based on where we are in the cycle of municipal government and budgeting, like reaching out to the various senior apartment buildings to, that's more of a, yes, you need the constant engagement, but to help them set up a Zoom or make sure the distribution list is right so they have, our communications posted in their mailroom of the building or something. Like there's systems that can be set up to, incrementally.
Yes,
improve.
exactly.
So I think it's a good document to show where we are and where we can go as time allows. So yes, documenting what we can achieve in our current capacity and kind of stay updated on that would be good to see where we could continue to grow if the positions can grow. Thanks.
All right, anything else on this? Good discussion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the draft for the communications plan as presented.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and second then. Any other discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. All right,
Thank you again.
thank you. Yeah. We've got a couple presentations on item 7, and we've scheduled those. Matt has scheduled those with those folks. So we'd like to kind of, if the board's okay with that, jump down there and then come back to unfinished business again, if anybody is okay with that. So with that, item 7 is to interview the solid waste and recycling services providers regarding a contract for the upcoming 2025 and beyond. So we have Pelletier and Solid Waste Management. Pelletier's up first. You passed the first test.
Figured out how to turn it on. Little victories, little victories. Well, first and foremost, thank you for your time as well as the opportunity to speak to you all tonight. I'm Todd with Pelletieri Waste Systems. I'm the municipal account executive for our company. I handle all of our city, town, village contracts, and get to pester good folks like yourselves on evenings like tonight. Yeah, I've been talking with the village staff for several months now, so I'm very grateful to have the opportunity to kind of tell you a little bit more about Pelletieri. I'm not sure how familiar people are with our company, kind of the services we provide, as well as some of the things that differentiate us from some of our competitors in the marketplace right now. With that being said, just kind of a quick summary of who we are. Pelletieri is the only local, family-owned and operated waste and recycling system in Dane County, and one of the few in the area. Current owners are third generation in the trash business. David and Danielle and Tim Pelletieri are the current owners of the company. They all live in Dane County and are proud to call this community home. Again, the current company as it stands has been in place for about 45 years now. We started our curbside service about 20 years ago, and we went out and we found a community that would kind of take that project on with us. And since then, we've grown to service about 40 communities around the area. We currently service about 76,000 homes. And we still service that same community that we started out with 20 years ago. One of the things that we like to hang our hat on, and one of the points that we're most proud of anything, Pelletieri has never lost a community to another provider. We have kept and provide service for every one of those municipalities. Through the service we provide, the professionalism, the customer service that we offer the communities, we have never, not one time, lost any contract that we've had to another service provider. One of the things that we're really proud of, and the main reasons for that, is our customer service. We have a fully staffed, live, local customer service team. I can promise you, anybody in this room, any staff, the village, any of your residents, more importantly, can pick up the phone, talk to somebody about 10 miles away, and they'll answer the phone. You're not going to sit on hold. You're not going to have to leave a message. You're not going to have to wait a day to get its call back. It's something that the family always believed really heavily in, is how we treat the communities that we do work with. And in today's day and age, we think that's more important than ever. There's not anybody in this room that doesn't want to smash a phone on the ground when they sit on hold and can't talk to somebody. That's not the case with us. That's not how we do business. And we want your residents calling us. We want to take the onus of any of those calls off the village staff. Our people are trained. They know your community. You're not calling a call center in another state, for that matter, and trying to figure out, our people live here. A lot of the people that work at our company live in Cottage Grove. The gentleman that sits right next to me lives in Cottage Grove. So we're here. We're local, and we're also all under one roof, which is nice. I sit about this far away from the vice president of our company, who sits next to our customer service team. We're all above our operations, our mechanics, our trucks, all of our ops, our supervisors. When there's an issue or there's a question, anything that happens, the speed at which our communication flows is not only extremely fast, it's almost seamless. You don't have to track anybody down. I can literally get a call and walk downstairs and track a truck down in about 30 seconds, a couple minutes, and get back to somebody that fast, which is terrific. It's the service we provide, and it's one of the reasons that we've held on to our communities for so long. Pelletieri also owns and operates their own material recovery facility, which is where all the recycling is processed, sorted, cleaned, and shipped out to the end users to be made into new products. That facility is located just on off of South Stoughton, right here in Madison, about 10 miles from here. It's called our Kip Street Station, brilliantly named because it's on Kip Street. But yeah, we are constantly adding new technology through the use of robotics, artificial intelligence, lasers, our sorting capabilities. We've really expanded what we can take from a recycling standpoint. I know that's important to the village and the people of Cottage Grove too. What happens to my recyclables? We're able to process up to 300 tons of recycling a day at our facility. We not only recycle and sort all the communities we do work for, all the City of Madison brings us their recycling. We sort the City of Madison's recycling as well. We offer tours at our facility. If anybody at the board would like to come and see how we actually operate over there, I'm happy to show you around the facility and kind of show you what makes us different there as well. We've got a great expanded list of recyclables. We can take things like your to-go cups, your Starbucks cups that used to get thrown away, milk cartons, juice cartons. We can take, small plumbing, metal plumbing fixtures. We can take appliances. You got an old toaster, throw it in your recycling bin. We'll take that in our recycling. Something a little different, pots and pans. Don't throw those out. We'll take those in our recycling. We can take bagged shredded paper that a lot of places don't take. And as long as it's in a clear plastic bag, we'll take bagged recycling, which I know a lot of places don't take. And if you're like me, it gets really sticky and buggy in this time of the year when you've got your recycling. And I know that's a lot of things that a lot of companies don't offer. Might not seem like a lot, but we go just absolutely above and beyond from a recycling standpoint. It's one of the cornerstones of our company. Even though we started in the trash business, sounds a little corny, but we consider ourselves a recycling company that picks up your trash as well. Another thing that I like to mention is that helps from a service standpoint, we're already in all your neighboring communities. Nobody can stand up here and tell you we're not going to miss a street. There's not going to be a snowstorm. Truck's not going to break down. We're in Sun Prairie, McFarland, Pleasant Springs, Burke, Bristol, Dunn, Monona, and that's just right around. I mean, we basically circle your community. We can come off route. We can pick up the next day. We can come back sometimes the same day if something happens. If there's an issue, we've always got trucks around that we can come and help any residents when they're in a jam. And like I said, that's not to mention all the other communities around Dane County that we service. Those are just a handful of the ones right around here, which is a nice thing to have. Pardon me. And more importantly, we want it to be really easy for the village to do business with us. We have a super user-friendly, easy-to-use, very information-filled website. We've got a terrific new app. I'm obviously biased. I work there, but it's fabulous. You can put in your address with every other week recycling. Sometimes you're like, am I an idiot? Is this the week that I need to take my recycling cans out? I think we've all been there at one point. You can set service reminders. If there's a snowstorm and a part of a neighborhood gets missed, we can literally circle that area on the computer and send an alert to your phone and be like, hey, leave your cans out. We'll pick them up tomorrow. We couldn't get to the rest of your neighborhood. It's just some really cutting edge stuff. We got a great Recycle Right tool. Not only can you have a searchable recycling database, if it doesn't tell you if it can recycle it, it'll immediately offer you a suggestion where you can take something that we can't take in the single stream process. We offer over 40 how-to videos. Again, as I mentioned, tours of a recycling facility. We strongly believe in community outreach and education, especially when it comes to recycling. I'm constantly doing presentations and sustainability meetings around Dane County. We believe that community involvement is really important for our company. Obviously, I know the village has a lot to discuss, and you have to do what's right for the community, and I just hope that you take some of the following into consideration. Please reach out, call any of the communities that we service, whether it's Sun Prairie, Fitchburg, Pleasant Springs, Middleton, Verona, Oregon, Wanakee. Pick a random one off of our website that we service. I promise you they will back up everything I'm telling you tonight, how they're treated, how open our lines of communications are, how any data requested is given freely and quickly, how easy it is to get a hold of anybody. And then I tell everybody to pick up the phone. Call any of our competitors and call Pelletieri and see how you're treated. See who picks up the phone, see who can answer a question for you, see who knows your community. It's pretty impressive. And no matter what anybody else claims, Pelletieri is truly the only local family-owned and operated trash and recycling service anywhere in the area. We take a lot of pride in that. It's a cornerstone. When the owners put their name on their business and on all their trucks, there's a higher level of accountability that comes with that too. We've grown our business one community at a time, very organically. We're not buying and acquiring companies. The village is our customer, not our shareholders or our stakeholders. We have the people in place, the bandwidth, the trucks. And just over the course of the past year alone, Mount Horeb, Poinet, most recently Monona, have all switched from waste management to Pelletier because of the services we provide. And again, we have never lost a community. City of Monona, after doing business with us for 1 month, we're so impressed they signed a 10-year extension with us after 1 month of service. Being a family-owned company for 45 years does allow us to offer Cottage Grove a real kind of family-to-family approach. Meeting the needs of our customers is, like I said, kind of the cornerstone of what our company is all about. We'd be honored to have the opportunity to serve your community. We're right down the street. Our corporate office, not just a satellite location. Everybody that works for us is literally about 10 miles down the road. Really appreciate your time. Again, just wanted to kind of give you a little recap of Pelletier, who we are. So happy to have this opportunity, and I'd absolutely welcome any questions for anybody that's not very familiar with our company or has anything specific they'd like to ask.
So let's keep cost questions that we're going to discuss in closed session. So this would just be any operation questions for Pelletier at this time.
I have a question about pickups.
Yes.
Typically, how many items are you able to leave at the curb for pickups, special pickups?
Special pickups, we typically have been going to a kind of pay-as-you-throw. You're talking like a bulk item, if I got like a mattress or something I want to throw away. We have the flexibility to do different programs. What we've been moving towards in most of our communities has been a kind of take the onus of that cost off of the village and the resident. You know, if I might throw one thing away a year and the duplex down the road that every year has a changeover and has 20 things in the curb, you know, like, why am I paying for all of their stuff to throw away? So we've done, it's available weekly. I mean, we'll pick up anything any of the residents want. But we do, and what we prefer to do to keep the village costs down and things of that nature. Because when you don't know exactly how many things you're getting picked up, we always have to lean on the side of caution. So we feel like a kind of a pay-as-you-throw system is the best way to go. It's the fairest to all the residents, saves the village a ton of money too, because that's factored into your monthly price as well. So to answer your question, we have the ability to look at kind of a general program. We do a lot of like spring cleanups where we either bring in dumpsters or we do a citywide cleanup where we go door to door like once a year or twice a year. There obviously is a cost associated with that, which I'm happy to get into those options if need be. But we do feel like we've moved almost solely to that kind of pay-as-you-throw platform. Mm-hmm.
So just to piggyback off that, so if I have 2 mattresses, I could put both out. I'd pay for both.
You bet.
But you'd pick them both up.
Oh, you could put a dozen
week.
things out that we
Okay.
come and get them, but we don't just kind of every week just blanket the area and pick them up.
Would we call ahead to
You'd
schedule
call
it?
and
Yeah.
you'd pay for that, but yeah,
Yeah.
we'd be in the neighborhood every week, so you might call on a Monday and be like, all right, great, have your stuff out on the curb by Wednesday.
Okay.
And it's pretty nice too, because you can actually get somebody on the phone when you call us. You can call us at 8 o'clock on Wednesday morning and be like, I've only got 2 things now. Somebody came and picked up the couch I left on the curb, and we'll credit you that money back. So it's pretty fluid, it's pretty flexible.
Yes, my question kind of builds on that also for special event pickups such as e-waste. Is that an event you do in other communities?
We do a ton of e-waste events, and we do that by again, we do that as a community-sponsored event. So it'd be billing the village, in this case, for that event. And we would basically come and we set up, or how we have been doing it in other communities. We'd basically come with a big trailer and we'd set up, Gaylord boxes, flat screens, tube TVs, computers, VCRs, if anybody has those still. Hence the reason of an e-waste event, I guess, to get rid of them. And then we just basically do a haul fee and then a tonnage fee. So if you pay by how much tons of recyclables. And we've done this enough in enough communities that I'm easily able to kind of give you examples of cost of similar sized communities and events we've done.
Great.
But yes, we absolutely do that.
The other question I had is also on sustainability, and that's sustainability of your fleet. And do you have any vehicles that run on some kind of renewable energy, or are you going to transition to that in the future?
We do have some compressed natural gas trucks, not as many as we'd like. During COVID, the availability and the pricing of those kind of hit everybody for a loop. We've looked into electric. It just, in this climate, in this current, I mean, you're looking at almost 2 times the cost and being able to service 2/3 the amount of people. So that doesn't make sense for us right now, especially in this climate. But we do have, I think right now we have 5 compressed natural gas trucks, and we're always looking to do more of that. But so we're trying, but our entire fleet isn't natural gas.
Okay, thank you.
I had a question. So you said you're expanding your recyclable list of materials. I've never heard you could throw a toaster in your recyclables, but I guess the question that I have is just more.
Well, you can't currently, I don't believe.
Okay. My question for you is, you process all the recyclables there on Olin. What percentage of that actually goes back into a landfill? I mean, it's not 100% recycled. I was just curious.
We'd like as a whole, over the course of the last year, we are right about 15% goes back to the landfill. So we're recycling good, about 85%. We'd like to see that number closer to 10, but a lot of it isn't just general apathy. It's more of like a lack of education. Like people are throwing away, we call it wish cycling, where you want to recycle something and throw it in, like, a dirty pizza box people want to throw in there. You can't recycle that if it's contaminated with grease and cheese and things like that. So that's the majority of things that come out of there.
And you said you're investing in technology to automatically sort.
Yep.
Is there a vision of possibly getting to a single container of garbage or trash that then would all be sorted? Because I'm sure there's people that throw things in the garbage that should be recycled.
Oh, sure. No, we take all of our garbage to the Dane County landfill. That just gets dumped out with the rest of the trash. There is, unfortunately for us, or I don't know of anybody on the planet that can sort recycles out of garbage. We can sort bad, to make sure our recycling is the cleanest for our end users, so we have a home for everything. But and these gentlemen can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't know anybody that can do it the other way, to take the recyclables out of the trash.
Other questions? Anything else?
And if not, I'm like I said, I'm super easy to reach. If anything comes up, like I said a dozen times, feel free to call. I'm Todd. They'll get you to me real easy. Really appreciate your time, and thanks for staying awake during my presentation. And hope everybody gets home safely. It's supposed to. My wife's convinced I'm not going to make it home, so that's.
Thanks, Todd.
You bet. Really appreciate your time. Thank you.
There we go. Thank you for having me here tonight to talk to you. I'm Tim Miller from Waste Management. And Waste Management's been around for 56 years, I believe now. But we do have locations in every state. We are a bigger company, but with that comes the ability to get a larger sample size from communities around the country. That allows us to stay ahead of trends, give us opportunities to improve our service levels, find out things that different communities want in another area, and then see if it's something we can offer in a different area. We do have a local hauling site, and I do get the local tone from Todd, but we are basically a local company that has the backing of a nationwide organization, which means we'll have those resources from around the country that we can utilize locally here. We got 75 people that work here in this area, work, shop, live. So we do the Touch a Truck event where the kids can come out and be exposed to different trucks. You know, you got your fire trucks, but to be exposed to a garbage truck, that has really changed. I mean, ever since I was little, my brother and I would look out the window when the garbage truck came. Those days have really evolved into now we've got the automatic side load trucks that come down, pick it up, drop it in, and it's a different world. So it's nice to be able to do community outreach and expose kids to that. But Waste Management does have the service infrastructure that allows us to maintain a high service level through our hiring practices, training practices, and then the trucks are compressed natural gas trucks. Our fleet is all CNG. So with that, granted we're not talking price, but we can get to that after the meeting. But we do have what's called Smart Truck. There's a third eye camera for the driver to look at when he's pulling up to a stop, when he dumps it, and when he's leaving. So we've got that's been a pretty big step in technology for us to look at, hey, either the can wasn't out, or that it's overflowed, or there's something in there that may not be recyclable that we could address. Try to educate customers as best we can with that. Sustainability practices, we do have a couple of tracking services that are available. Lamp tracker, battery tracker, there's a med waste tracker, but battery tracker is probably the most important one in our world. Nothing worse than picking up a lithium battery that's in the garbage, and when the truck does compact it, you can have a fire. It's a real situation. So being able to offer a tracking system for companies, residents to dispose of lithium batteries, any batteries properly, is a huge step. Our MRF, our material recovery facility, a newly remodeled MRF in Germantown that handles almost the better half of Wisconsin. They do have better sorting methods there. They do have the optical eye that sorts. We've got a video on our website that shows exactly how that works. It starts off on the floor, works its way through the system. It can identify aluminum, and it has a magnet for the other metals. I can identify the plastics, and it blows them off the line. And we've really improved the amount of recovered recyclables since the upgrade to that MRF. And that did increase our actual recycling. Your question earlier about how much is actually recycled, we're not under 10%, but we are under the 15%, right in the low teens for total recoverable recycling. And that goes a long way toward improving the grant money that communities get from the DNR. We did put together a bid that I feel gives the residents in the village the best fit for continuing great service without disruption of switching haulers. Some factors were involved in that. We're coming off of, I believe, a 10-year-old agreement, and that agreement did not allow for the economic impact that we've felt in the last couple of years. But where we're at right now, in talking with our team when we were putting together this package, we wanted to include, maintain that price level. So we're going to leave that right where it is. We do have some options if you're interested in having the entire village serviced on one day. That's been talked about. So right now we do it on 2 days, but we could do it on one day. And if we were going to do that change, we currently do Monday, Tuesday. I would like to do Tuesday. That way, if anyone on Monday did forget about the change, it's still out there. If we move Tuesday to Monday, then now we're in a position where somebody's going to be affected possibly. Bulk items, we have that offered as well. Customers prepay ahead of time, and we come by and pick up any amount of items that they have. The e-waste event, similar situation. WM would supply the truck, the Gaylords, the pallet jacks, and residents can come and drop them off for the e-waste collection. And let's see, the last thing I want to talk about, My WM, the app that we have, does allow for ETA, expected time of arrival for a truck, when they can expect it to be at their house. If I get a call and they're wondering where the truck is, I can go onto our system and find the truck. And it does track his time, where he is, where he's at, and when he takes his meal break. And it gets pretty granular, but I'm able to look up the address, trace it back to the truck, and say, hey, he hasn't been there yet, or he'll be there shortly, or he actually was by there. Was it out? And a lot of times they'll say, no, I didn't have it out, but we can make a swing back through and collect that. But I feel like we've had a great business relationship. I've been with WM for a couple of years now, and it seems to have been going very smoothly. And I look forward to continuing that partnership, making it stronger if we can continue our relationship. And I want to thank you for your time. Any questions?
Any questions for Tim?
Yeah, I had a question. On your website, it talks about dropping off recyclable items. I didn't realize that. Can Village residents right now drop off at your sites with no charge, or is it a charge for a drop-off?
Well, if you're a resident of one of our municipalities and you didn't have something that you wanted to drop off, yes, you can.
So, my experience with the bulk items has been that we are only able to put one piece out per week. So like we've had to hold 3 mattresses to stagger them each week.
Yep.
But I'm hearing
That
you
was the current world that we're working off of, an old advanced disposal contract.
Okay.
The new one, we want to make it needs to be more customer friendly. If as many as you have, because again, we're moving it from the entire community is paying for the service to the resident that has a couch that needs to be picked up is paying for that couch. So there is no cap, there's no limit, and they pay as you go.
And are currently, since you're our current provider, are the Cottage Grove addresses in the website such that we could schedule it online? And speaking from experience, poor Lisa has had to call to help me get my stuff picked up because I could not figure out how to get it done on the website.
Yes, there is a link. Those and I have worked also with the addresses. I plug them in as if I were a resident in whatever municipality. But for Cottage Grove, I'd plug the address in, and there was an issue at one time that either the system was down, but a lot more people are doing things electronically, so they made some upgrades to that, and with that link that we had, you can go right through, say I'm residential, looking for a bulk pickup, what item do you have, what is your address, and then it says yes, it's available in your area, and then you actually schedule the pickup. That way it's not sitting out there for an extended period of time.
Okay. I was wondering, could you remind me where your facilities are again that you take our garbage and recycling to?
Occasionally we'll go to the Dane County landfill, and I know that some of and it may be the commercial, I don't want to misspeak, but Deer Track Park for trash. But the recycling does go to our Germantown MRF, and they still have room to add additional. So it's a phenomenal location, phenomenal shop that does the material recovery. Thank you.
2 unrelated things. So kind of going back to the bulk pickup. So currently, if you put one item out, it's free, and then if you want to do additional bulk items, then there's a fee. Is that still the case, or is that changed? Because I think currently that's,
Currently, you're right on point, yes. Moving forward, it's gonna be just pay per item. If you have one couch, you pay for the couch. If you have one mattress, pay for the mattress. Because it could be sporadic. It could be, I don't have anything at all for the year, or it could be, I have one every month, or two in a week.
okay, thank you. And then the other is if it's a renter, can they do it electronically to contact you, or do they have to call the phone number? So I think currently they would have to contact the hotline or the,
When you say renter,
so I think it has to be the owner of the property that can do, the bulk pickup. Like, so currently, like I have that, I'm a renter.
okay.
So I am not able to do it electronically. So I know you have a method that you can do it through text messaging. You can do it electronically, but I am not able to do that. I have to call the 1-800 number, which sometimes can take a while to
Okay.
reach someone. So is that still the case, or?
That should be able to, that function should be available to you. I would like to get some more information from you
Okay.
on that to make sure because that should work smoothly. If you're a renter and you have something, I don't see any reason why we'd have to bother the landlord or the owner, and you should be able to do that directly.
It might depend on the number of units. How many units,
I'm
Lori?
in a
are-
fourplex.
Okay, so
That
that should be covered under the,
Yeah,
yeah,
that should be good.
okay.
Thank you.
That's a good catch.
I do have one final question. Speaking of customer service and Lorraine's experience, I've also been on hold and ended up hanging up because I couldn't get a hold of somebody. Has your customer service on answering the phone improved?
That has been a hot button that they are working on, yes. They're working on the website as well as having those calls be more efficient. They're tracking the time that they're on the call, and they have an acronym for it, but it's the time that it takes for resolution. And their goal is to be under 10 minutes, but under 5 minutes is the optimum.
I know you said your recovery rate was 85+%, but I was interested in looking at your website. It talks about what you can recycle, what you can't. It says you cannot bag your recyclables, meaning you cannot have a bag in your house, put your recyclables in it, and throw that bag in the container. Why is that? If you've got an advanced recycling facility, why are you limiting that to unbagged items?
Because, great question, and I do encourage encourage everyone to look at the video of the MRF. But step one is very primitive, and when the recycling is on the floor, it goes through. I mean, you can't go up to it because it's a lockout tagout situation because safety, but there's very, almost looks violent, the way the arms are going through to disrupt the recycling, and those bags become tanglers, and it gets caught in that machine. So we put on there that you can't or shouldn't put a bag in there, but people still do, inevitably. They do get in there, right. And then what happens is they shut the machine down, stop it, do the lockout, tag out, go in there, and then they're pulling out bags. And another great example, rubber hose. To me, I would say, hey, that's recyclable, but that's a pretty significant tangler, and they'll be there a while trying to cut that out. But bags are very disruptive for that first initial step of getting it through the process.
Should sort it before bagging it. I would say a lot of people put recyclables in a bag and then put it in their recycling container.
Yeah, and they do work through that. We do work through that, but they work through that at the MRF to try to get it further down the line.
It's interesting to see on the website.
Yeah.
I was told, because I was a bagger of my recyclables, and I was told it just was going right to the landfill. It was, so when I learned that, my heart broke because I had been bagging my recyclables for a year or two. But anyway, so that because I know a lot of people do bag them, but that's what I was told, that it just goes right to the landfill instead of getting handled.
No, that it does get handled, but I've heard that same thing, and that was, we had the old style split body. It's a split body truck, recycling on one side, garbage on the other. And we've moved away from those, but now it's automatic side load truck. But the split body trucks, people would see our driver dumping the trash, grab the recycling, they put it in the same truck. They're throwing my recycling away. But that's not the case. Not the case. And if it is bagged, it is going to the MRF, and it is being ripped open, sorted, and if the bag gets caught in there, then they get to a point where they have to shut it down and then pick it out.
Any other questions for Tim?
Okay. Well, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate your business and look forward to hopefully continuing that relationship. So thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Get us back on track here. So, board's okay, we'll move back in time, or back on the agenda, to unfinished business. Next would be to discuss and consider amendments to the village board's capital prioritization guidelines and process. Cindy put a memo in the packet for consideration.
I did. So I think with any process, there's room for improvements. And I watched this process last year, and I think trying to start going through it again this year, I'm just kind of suggesting that we talk about a couple of things and also maybe define our categories a little bit better to make it easier for us to go through the capital list and maybe more easily bucket things, make it a little bit more efficient. So there are three, I think, attachments. So one, just my bullet points of kind of what I like, higher picture, what I'd like to discuss, I think. There's a track changes document, and then there were additional answers for some of the questions in the track changes from Cameron.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
The survey's already been opened for us to answer.
Correct.
Okay.
Right. So I think everything came out in the first email with the survey plus these attachments.
First email. You mean
Or
from
Cameron's original email.
Yeah, so
that started this whole
some
thing.
folks have already completed the survey, right?
Correct.
Okay.
And maybe this isn't something we adopt this year, but I think at least a clarification for me would be helpful, especially when it comes to defining the categories. I know there were examples, because if you go to like the page 2 from the track changes documents for the ranking charts, I just added a chart there and tried to maybe better define, which was defined, I guess, below, you know, what those categories were. But then providing examples to better bucket. I know the first example from the original category A had some examples, but then I think it kind of deteriorates, at least for me, kind of working through the process as kind of move down the ranking scale. And then also knowing, I guess, like what the outcome is too. Like, is there a really critical outcome if something isn't ranked as urgent, but as you move down that scale too, like, does it just push things maybe further out, but there isn't like a reduction in service or a fee that's incurred or something like that.
I'm thinking of like, it seems like each of us can, I don't know, like defining an urgent might be different from different perspectives. Like, I'm thinking about the neighborhood schools and how we've talked about improving pedestrian safety at Taylor and Highway N. And like, that may not have been urgent until now we're talking neighborhood schools, so we'll have different age groups interacting with that intersection. So maybe that moved up one year, maybe some people view it as more urgent than other people, and like, I don't know how to like capture that, except for, you know, staff will base the financial management plan on kind of the general consensus, and then based on our conversation we have when we approve it, we can move it up further. It's just like, how do we develop that like initial presentation? And then we can always make modifications as we approve it, but I guess trying to front how we define it as urgent. I guess I'm.
I guess
what-
that's where
what do you wanna change?
I need more definition in order so that I know what I'm categorizing the items into.
The thing that I kind of struggle with is like, how do you sort of quantify what effect the rankings are going to have on, excuse me, the year that things get finished? Like everything is attached to a year right now. Is there a threshold for a priority number that gets moved up a year, or I don't know how that works, I guess.
And I think that's what, when I tried to kind of come up with these definitions or like add a little bit more to them, I'm like, well, urgent would be immediate, right, in the next year. Where a high priority is maybe the 1 to 5 years, a medium priority is like 6 to 10, and then eventually gets moved up. But
Yeah, I think it's a struggle because you eventually got to put all this against what we have in the pot, you know, without going to, you know, the voters. So that's the other thing. I see this more of as guidance for the board to get the process started. It doesn't mean that, you know, the discussions go along the way and things flip around or something gets added in that wasn't considered initially from this, or God forbid something happens where we have to throw something in because it moves really too urgent. That's where I see this. I mean, I think having a discussion about the definitions, everything, you know, I think that's worthy to do that. My only struggle right now is that we're kind of already in the process. So, you know, changing definitions and having, you know, further continuity on this or discussions, in-depth discussions, probably should happen earlier in the year, for me at least, because I know where we got to be on the calendar for all this stuff as a board to make sure we're, you know, meeting the milestones we need to meet ultimately.
Right.
Matt, you have something?
Just a comment on taking a step back to 3 years ago and then 2 years ago. So two years in a row, we didn't have any guidelines, and the board during those years struggled to adopt a 10-year capital plan within the financial management plan, and ultimately essentially did not approve a plan altogether. And then, but the board identified that was a struggle, that we don't want to continue doing that, so they asked our financial advisor and staff team to bring some, you know, what do other communities do, what guidelines do they use, or how do they, you know, maneuver through this process and get to an adopted plan in a more smooth process. So they did some research and submitted some templates, and we worked with Ehlers on putting this together. And to Cindy's point, I mean, it's definitely not perfect and can you know, be amended or tweaked, but ultimately, or not even used altogether too, because at the end of the day, all this, if we spend a bunch of time on these guidelines, I mean, all it's doing is informing the financial advisor and Cameron on building the first draft that gets reviewed multiple times. Yeah. So they're, you know, if we didn't have the guidelines, then, you know, the board would just get a first draft and could move items around or take them out or add them in. You know, you could really do any number of things. You could amend these, or you could give staff just more general direction. But anyway, that's where we ended up last time around, and it helped the past board, but of course, you know, there's several new board members on this board, and, you know, maybe you guys wouldn't be stuck in that regard and would be able to just approve a plan, you know, from a draft. Or anything in between, you know, tweaking the guidelines or whatever you'd like, so.
I
don't know
wonder
if that
if,
was helpful.
since the survey's already open and some folks have already taken it, and I believe, my understanding is that we're doing a strategic planning process, do I understand that right, Matt? Or?
If the board approves that in the budget,
if
that
the
was my suggestion, or my thought was based on feedback from many of you, that might be something that you'd like to see move forward, so
Yeah.
that, you know, provided it is approved in the budget and fits in the budget, that would be something to work on next year.
So I wonder if these types of considerations might be good to have in that process and have these definitions and have, maybe we do that, maybe it's a 3-year strategic plan and this is what we use and that is our plan for 3 years. So maybe that's where this information goes, since some folks have already done the survey based on the email that went out.
I would support something like that than having multiple documents, having one strategic plan.
I think even just hearing that these are guidelines versus, because the title's criteria, and so I think coming from my background, like I take SOPs very seriously, and so like if this is the SOP for how we prioritize, like I need a lot more context and more direction versus like guidelines. So.
Yeah, you know, I guess I'm kind of indifferent whether we use the old grading or the new grading. It is directional, right? So I don't know how much time we want to spend on the initial directional, you know, setting of these priorities, because it's not final. If it was a final plan, obviously we're going to need to do, you know, some more diligence, but in the context of what this is for, begin with the end in mind. I'm indifferent, Cindy. If we want to change it, we can change it. I think we've already begun the process this year. I'd recommend we just finish the process this year, and then we can pick this back up, and we got to do it long before we get into this phase of planning. But again, we could revisit it then, unless you feel like we need to try to revise and finalize something at this point for next year right now.
I think that knowing that other people have already done their homework well ahead of time, that we continue with the process as originally written. However, I would like to revise the document, whether it's during strategic planning or far ahead of this process in the next year.
I think it's really helpful as we go through this process to already be thinking about like how we can improve it in the future though too. So it kind of gets the wheels turning on like, oh, maybe since it's a relatively new process, like that we can like continue to improve it and fine tune it over time. So it's good to like think about that as we do it.
And you may have noticed, sorry, Cindy, you guys may have noticed if you look through the comments, it's definitely worthwhile to review because, for example, Cindy asked something along the lines of, you know, like, what's the difference between group D and E? And when I took a look at it, I'm like, you know, those can probably be combined, or one could be, combined and one could be eliminated. So there's definitely, you know, improvement there. And it was really just a starting point. We didn't have something, we needed to, get something together, and that's what we came up with, the first rendition of it, but.
And thank you, Cameron, too, for sitting down and going through all my questions. It was helpful, which you all got to see the answers to.
Do you need official action, John?
No, you're not required to take action or take a vote. If the decision is just to hold tight for now and do the strategic planning, that can be a decision that's made at the budget time. But you don't have to take any action tonight.
Just want to say thank you, Cindy, for all your due diligence and hard work in that. So.
All right. And with that then, unless there's any other discussion, we'll move on to discuss and consider the release of Phase D of Quarry Ridge.
I can take this, I guess. So, basically, this is an agreement that is just releasing the last phase of the Quarry Ridge development. So I think like in 2018 or 2019, it was before our time with the village, there was an agreement between the village and the developer to develop Quarry Ridge. So they're on the final phase of this. I think we did one with Phase C, and now they're just going on to the last phase. This basically just releases the lots so they can put together their plans and specs for the public improvements, and then we get a letter of credit or a bond for the public improvements. So it's basically identical to the Phase C agreement. There's not really any changes. The one kind of note is that there is like a gas pipeline easement over one of the roads from a previous phase, or under one of the roads for the previous phase, that needs to be constructed at, like, the road needs to be constructed at some point, but we're just sort of like putting reminders in the Phase C agreement and this agreement that the developer needs to build that road eventually. It's just we need to figure out that easement issue. So we've been working with the gas company to figure that out.
And the cost of that's going to go to the developer?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep, they're responsible for constructing everything.
Any questions in regards to this from board members?
I'll make a motion to approve the release of Phase D of Quarry Ridge as presented.
We got a motion and second then. Any other discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Any abstain? Motion carries. All right, now we can shift back over to new business, item B. This is discuss and consider cigarette, tobacco, and electronic vaping device retail license application for licensing July 2024 through June 2025 for Dollar General. Lisa, you want to?
Sure, thanks, John. This is before you because this did not have to have a publication or be held for a period of time like an alcohol license. The police department did do their due diligence of their checks with the facility, so this is ready for approval if you so wish.
Thanks, Lisa. Any questions, comments?
I'll make the motion to approve the license for July 2024 to June 2025 for Dollar General as presented.
Second?
All right, we have a motion and second then. Any other discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? Motion carries. Next then, we move on to discuss and consider the height requirements for pool fences. Chris?
Yeah, this is something I've just been thinking about for a while. I've talked to a couple people around the village that wanted to install in-ground pools, but they have 4-foot fences, so they can't really do that. And removing and reinstalling a smaller fence isn't really financially feasible for them. So I had Rick look at local municipalities and their height requirements for their pools, and there's a graphic in the memo. Most of them have a requirement for 4-foot pools. I think the biggest question for a lot of people is probably safety for lowering the height requirements, and I don't have any hard data on this, but I'm assuming most of these municipalities would not keep this 4-foot height requirement if it was not safe. So I just wanted to bring this forward to the board and see what you guys thought.
All right, thanks, Chris. Questions, comments?
So Rick, if we, for example, we move forward and we lower it from 5 to 4, and if some toddler is able to climb a 4-foot fence, falls in and drowns, what's a liability that the village takes on?
I never want to say never. I think it's in all likelihood the village wouldn't have any liability. I mean, because it's not like there's a legal requirement to have a fence requirement in place in the first place. So this is strictly a legislative decision. So you're by statute going to be immune from legislative decisions. So because you pass an ordinance, basically the legislature and the courts say that those types of decisions, we're not going to second guess those for liability purposes. So generally, I would say in all likelihood, I never want to say never, but you would be immune from any type of liability there.
And you're saying there's no state statute as it relates to this requirement?
Not that I'm aware of. There there could be something, I guess, but I've never run into anything. In all honesty, I haven't spent a lot of time looking at pool fence requirements. It's not like a uniform dwelling code requirement or anything like that. It's basically a local decision about, what's in the public health, safety, welfare interest for the community.
We have recently debated if we should even require fences at all. So,
for a pool.
for a pool. And we did decide to keep a fence, and now it sounds like we need to decide if we're good to go to 4 feet, of which I think is fine. So I will make a motion, if that is a thing here. I'll make a motion that we approve 4-foot fences around the pool.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion second then. Any other discussion? Having heard none, all's in favor then? Aye. Anybody opposed? You abstain, okay. Thanks.
So just on process-wise, so this isn't a formal ordinance. I guess we'll draft an ordinance and we'll bring it back as.
So there'll be another vote on the ordinance.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah, it's part of the zoning ordinance, so it'd have to go to plan commission and then come back here.
Thank you, Aaron. Next, then, we have discuss and consider a claim for reimbursement of lost personal property. So when you were, Rick, oops.
I can actually take that one. I wrote the memo to you guys for that one.
Oh.
So staff received a claim in the amount of $506.39 for a phone that was lost during a traffic stop. Staff has reviewed the claim with the village's liability insurance company, and the recommendation is to pay the claim. The amount is below the village's self-insured retention amount of $25,000, so this amount would be paid by the village if the village board chooses to pay the claim.
Yeah, I guess my only comment would be, I'm not sure what the right procedure is as far as a traffic stop and personal property of those that you stop. I'm assuming there was a review on the incident, and we've made any corrections to our procedures so that this doesn't happen again?
Yes, correct.
Perfect.
It's actually currently being under investigation internally right now, and it will be handled in-house.
Perfect.
Can you elaborate a little bit? So is this standard to take personal property like this, or?
I have to be very careful because it's still considered an open case. This was a traffic stop where an incident was arrested for a violation. As the search was going on, one of the officers had placed the cell phone on top of a squad car, did the rest of the business, and then absentmindedly forgot the cell phone, and then transported the individual to the Dane County Jail, then realizing that the cell phone was gone. So it is an error on their part. They've owned it. So yeah, it is part of procedure. It was just, unfortunately, it was an officer error that resulted to where we are tonight.
I'll make a motion that we approve paying the claim for the reimbursement of the lost personal property as presented.
I'll second that.
We got a motion second. Any other discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Any abstain? Motion carries. Next then, we'll move to reports from village boards, commissions, and committees, starting off with Parks, Recs, and Forestry and Sustainability. Heidi.
Yep, this event came up between meetings, so it's kind of a standalone approval we're looking for tonight. The Pickleball Advisory Committee has come up with some various pickleball events that they'd like to hold, and this event is popular in other communities, and so it's kind of a social pickleball event where alcohol would be allowed, and so it's a standalone type of event, and we'd be looking for the same type of approval like when we have Music in the Grove to allow for alcohol in the parks for this specific event. I don't know, Sean, if you have anything to add on that?
No, I think you got it all.
Did Parks talk anything about, since it is around the pickleball courts or in the pickleball courts, and it's a very hard surface, glass? No glass?
Nothing on the court surface itself.
Okay.
So it's just the area around.
Area on it, okay,
Yes.
thank you. Any other, you want to cover anything else on that?
No, that was, it's just a standalone for Parks and Rec, so just looking for approval to suspend the ordinance on the dates listed in the memo.
Okay, thanks, Heidi.
I'd make a motion to approve allowing alcohol in Bakken Park for their Dink and Drinks events.
All right, is there a second?
Well, I'll second.
All right, we got a motion and a second then. Any other discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Any abstain? Motion carries. All right, thanks Heidi. Next then we have the Ad hoc Centennial Committee. Cindy?
The Ad hoc Centennial Committee met on Wednesday, July 10th, and we discussed our centennial celebration, which is on Saturday, October 12th from 11 to 3. We decided to put 2 tents up, so we gave direction to JJ and how to situate those tents. And then we booked the DJ. I've been working on the birthday cake and ordering some other things for the celebration. I'm working on some of those logistics. We also talked to Tracy, who came up with a list of some other events around the centennial throughout the month of October to kind of engage families and others a little bit more. And then I did meet with Mr. Foster from GRS, and then kind of made some decisions on how we're going to structure the centennial within the schools, the elementary schools, and likely the middle school too. So an email went out to everyone on the committee with that information. And that's all we talked about, I guess. Our next meeting is Wednesday, August 7th at 9 a.m.
All right, thanks Cindy. Next then we have Utility Commission. Chris?
We met on Wednesday, July 10th at 5. We did have a public appearance, a couple, and actually kind of dovetails with another part of the agenda, so I'll just combine them. But a couple showed up with their utility bill. They also have a residence in Texas, was it? San Antonio? And they just had some recommendations of things we could add to our bill just to get a better idea of where the charges are coming from and stuff. So it remains to be seen if we can incorporate any of that. We also discussed a submission of a comment to CARP C on the proposed amendment to the Dane County Water Quality. I lost it just a second. Dane County Water Quality Plan, and we approved that, right? We approved that. So has that been sent then? All right, probably sent it right after the meeting. We didn't have much of a director's report since it was Kyla's third day, so we didn't go over much, but we set a date for next meeting, and we had a closed session item of which nothing came from, and then we adjourned. Nothing official came from.
Yeah, just to dovetail on that, thanks Chris for mentioning, this is Kyla's first board meeting, so welcome to Kyla, new to our team, Public Works and Utilities Director.
Thanks, Matt. It's happy to be here. Looking forward to sitting on the other side of the table this time with the village side.
And she's already encountered a lot of different interesting things with all the construction going on around the village too. Saw her out and about on Friday, talked to her, so.
We got the gravel out, so we all can get into the building today, so that's what matters.
Yeah. And got the TDS line reconnected. Yes. With that, we'll move then, and welcome. With that, then we'll move on to Plan Commission. We met also on the 10th. Nothing really of actionable note for consideration for the board here. We did discuss a couple items. One regarding the potential zoning amendment related to keeping chickens in a planned industrial district. Aaron has a little bit of homework on that, but in general, the commission was acceptable for that. And again, this had a particular interest from a daycare to enrich some of the kids, and apparently it's been done elsewhere. So he's moving forward with that. We did hear a concept presentation from Lakewood Development Properties regarding the area around just beyond Taylor there that's undeveloped farmland currently. There was no action from that meeting, just again looking for general both feedback as well as, as kind of sharing the thoughts on that. They're looking at age-restricted area there for 150 acres of development, 55 years and older, kind of a unique positioning of that property, unique to Dane County, not unique to other places, but some amenities associated with that. But they've got a lot more homework to do before it really comes back to for any kind of action, both from the commission as well as from this board. And then discuss zoning amendments related to alcohol sales and vape shops based on the state law changes there for distributors. So again, more work to be done on that. Any questions?
Yeah, I was just curious what for the residential project, is the next step on that general development?
Next step, I think, is just having a
Neighborhood meeting.
Neighborhood meeting.
They would have to do that prior to submitting for the GDP.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So
I just watched the plan commission. And
there's quite a few steps and a lot of input and things that they'll take along the way, but it is a unique offering that we currently don't have, and it's not available necessarily around Dane County. So, any other questions? All right, then we'll move to Police Commission. Lieutenant?
Thanks, John. Prior to the Police Commission, I'm going to use this time for a shameless plug for a community night out, August 21st, Bakken Park. So please look forward to everyone being there. The Police Commission met on Wednesday, July 11th at 5:45. Main part of that meeting was to interview police officer candidates for the open position that we currently have. They came out of closed session, gave the police chief a certified list, and we have moved one candidate forward into the next step in that hiring process with a background check. The ultimate goal, if that individual does pass their background check and all testing, that they will start the police academy on August 12th. And then I know the chief had a discussion with the police commission also about the current department structure and possibly bringing a restructure towards to this board during budget time.
All right. Thanks, Lieutenant. Next, then we have reports from village officers, starting off with Rick.
I have nothing, but I'll reserve the right to speak during Lisa's time.
That's legalese. Come on. Wouldn't expect anything less. Deputy Administrator, update on the website design.
I'm debating whether I should move to the front, but I don't know that this report's going to take that long. I'm going to show you a few kind of high-level highlights from our work with Civic Plus. So, if you bear with me, I'm hoping to share my screen in an efficient manner this evening. So far, not so good. All right. Why is that not working?
I think you jinxed yourself. That's what I think.
I did. How about this one? Okay, you should see our current website. And now I'll take you behind the scenes while they're still working here. Here's a high-level look at what the page will look like. Might not seem all that different, but to those of us who've been working on it, this is a lot, and it's beautiful. So these are just kind of where we have our most clicked areas, a lot more aesthetically pleasing, easier to read. And down here, please note the cool little arrow that moves. So again, it's just, a lot of it is aesthetics, but it's also ease of use. And bear with me when you're behind the scenes, you can't, like this will not show like this. This is difficult to read, so I had to get logged in to where you see they don't have the pictures at this level, but this is to show how the white will show up and how it contrasts with the dark brown from our logo. So let's see, what else did we want to make sure we showcased here? Also, a big piece will be this down here, and actually pretty good example right now. Not a whole lot of Standardization based on whatever we use here for a picture, a graphic. These will all be a standard shape and format. So anytime we add a news flash or an announcement to this section, there'll be a lot more conformity in how they look, no matter who enters it or what it looks like. The graphic will be the same format. I think that's really it. They're helping us clean up a lot of things behind the scenes. This, just another example, Discover Cottage Grove, we're gonna shorten that to Discover, and Connect with us is just gonna be Connect. Just kind of cleaning up a lot of the small clutter things that slow people down here, but that's where we're at right now. Looking forward to the next step. We had a few comments from our team that we're gonna send back to their group and tweak a little more here, and then they're gonna really build the whole thing here in the next month. All right, any questions on the website redesign?
So we're about a month out, or to
Actually,
unveil
that'll
it, or-
be, let me go to the timeline. I think we may be a few months away before it's completely up and running for the general public.
Okay, that's what I thought, but thank you.
I was wondering, do you think we'll think about like the elections when we'll be rolling, because that'll be a popular time. I'd hate for people to be, I mean, maybe it'll be better if it rolls out and it's easier to find, but maybe not, because there's the new polling location, so people might be visiting the site a lot. I'm just,
Yep.
we should consider when we're rolling things
Absolutely.
out. And
I see Lisa's going for a button. I do think the fact that they're building it behind the scenes like that and staff can get in and look and make sure that things are where they generally were before, if anything easier to find, will be helpful, but
I will put in a shameless plug for myvote.wi.gov is the best place to find your polling location or all things related to your ballot, your sample ballot, what is on your ballot, who your elected officials are, and where you vote. Or request an absentee ballot or register if it's open.
perfect, thank you.
And I've used it, it's easy to use too, to figure out where you gotta go for your polling station, so. Anything else?
Question. How does the website redesign also integrate with the communications plan that was just approved?
that's a great question. I think as we go through and develop an action plan on those priorities, we can find ways to integrate that work. I don't know that there's anything that jumps out.
Well, I just thought newsletter was part of the communications
Oh,
plan.
the newsletter is, yep, and Civic Plus can do that. That doesn't have to be necessarily part of the redesign. They could have done that with our old website.
But I mean, like
with-
signing up, like is that on like the front page or?
Oh, that'll be in the same kind of location it always has been, but it'll be,
Yeah, if you
More obvious.
noticed when he was showing you the pictures were the news flash and announcements, if you, in the design, and I don't know that it is that way right now, but if you go all the way to the end, there's gonna be two icons standing there for how to connect with us, so they can sign up, and then for your account, so then you can sign up to get agendas, minutes, anything that you would want, notifications, as that you can do currently. It's just on, I believe, the current website, it's on one of our quick links where it is to connect with us.
Thanks to all the staff that put in a lot of work on this. I think it looks really nice. It really ties together with, the logo redesign and brings, all those pieces together to really reinforce our brand and help people find the information they need easier and more intuitive. I think anything we can do to help people that aren't familiar with how government's organized to be able to find the information they need. So thank you.
All right. If there's nothing else on that, we'll move down a little bit here. We've got some consideration for committee assignments with Lorraine joining us, as well as we had a spot on Pure Court. So what better way to welcome someone but give them some committee work? What the heck? Again, this is for the board's consideration.
I'll make a motion to approve the nomination of Lorraine Gage to Fire District, Net Big Landfill, and CDA.
Second. All right, we have a motion and second then. Any other discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Motion carries anyway. Next then, Cindy's kindly jumped into Pure Court Steering Committee, volunteer there. So consideration there as well.
I'll make the motion to approve the nomination of Cindy Kell-Nelson to Pure Court Steering Committee.
Second.
We have a motion and second then. Any other discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? And someone abstains. All right, motion carries anyway. Thank you both. With that then, we have Lisa.
Thank you, John. There's a memo in your packet with some information and recommendation from staff to keep the drop box closed for August 13th partisan primary due to the timing of the ruling of the of Election Day. Part of that is, as in the memo, our instructions have already gone out with our absentee ballots. That does not indicate that we do have a drop box because of that ruling. And also because, as you can see, our parking lot and our entrance to our building is kind of in disarray at the moment. So it makes it a little bit difficult for people to reach that drop box. But it does lead us to a good conversation of the plan moving forward for November of what we would like to do for that drop box, or potentially in the future of getting a standalone absentee ballot drop box that could be located and would only be open during elections. Rick, did I cover everything? You have anything else to add in there? There is the memo from the Election Commission on this court case.
Sure. I mean, basically, so 2020, because of COVID, drop boxes were very common throughout the state. Then a few years ago, there was this Wisconsin Supreme Court decision that said we can't use drop boxes. And now, last week or 2 weeks ago, there was a Wisconsin Supreme Court decision that said you can use drop boxes. So there's just sort of been this changing dynamic. But now the Elections Commission has provided guidance following that court decision to say these are how you can use drop boxes. I mean, the biggest thing is they need to be secure. So we've been talking with Lisa about, and the Elections Commission memo talks about security and just different methods of doing that. So the biggest thing is we can't group everything together, like with utility bills and all that, unless we're gonna have sort of one designated election person accessing the box, because we just don't want to have ballots available to anybody just to, because the Supreme Court decision just says they have to be secure. There's not really much guidance on what that means. So we're just trying to navigate the legal landscape the best we can to make sure we're complying with the election statutes in the court decision.
Do you think that there'll be, I know it's a time crunch, which is really the problem, but the court case came out and then people will be expecting that, like, because of the court case, not because of what they received in the mail, that they should be able to drop it in a drop box, or
I mean, that's, people may have an expectation. There's not a requirement to use a drop box. Like the statutes are clear on that. It's sort of in the clerk's discretion on whether or not to offer that as an option. So for November, that would be the plan, obviously, was to have the drop box available. But just because of sort of these mitigating factors that are currently ongoing right now, that's just trying to balance everything to make sure there's no confusion for people wanting to use Dropbox.
So can we, I know my vote is the primary spot, but like the hour, like we have extended hours for early voting and such, that you can bring back your absentee ballot. Like maybe we can have, I'm sure you probably have social media posts already like thought about, and I'm sure it's already included, but I just want to say it out loud. Yeah.
No, good comment. It's called Type E notice, which is all the instructions for absentee voting, which lists the hours that you can do in-person absentee voting, which then we also have extended hours on certain days, and then for August, I believe it's one Saturday. For November, it'll be the 2 Saturdays, because it's the 14 days prior to that we will have office hours. So, and in there, it does say that you can drop it. So literally, you're walking around the corner from where the drop box is located currently, if it's during office hours. So I think, yes, that's part of the problem with this coming out at this time is we've had to kind of backpedal because of those law changes and educating people that they can't drop off their ballots or couldn't drop their ballots off in a drop box, which was not always well received. So now re-educating them that, oh, now you can. I just think that the timing is just way too close to turn that around with what has happened. And certainly going forward, it will be different for November and will be a busier time too. I mean, August isn't as busy as of election just because of the timing, so.
Yeah, it's a lot to try to implement in such a short time frame and big elections. So,
It sure is, and if you, as you all know, they change regularly. So it's keeping up with all of that.
And just for clarification, so did you get that information out in social media? So that
We will have some things going out. We haven't at this time because we wanted to bring it to you all first and give you the information. This, as you saw, just came out on the 11th, so more information to come.
All right, any other questions? All right, then we'll move on to communication versus business, starting off with consideration of the vouchers.
I'll make a motion to approve the vouchers as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second then. Any other discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Any abstain? Motion carries. Correspondence? I don't have anything, so I don't know if anybody else does. All right, then we'll move to upcoming community events. We already had the shameless plug for August 21st.
I was going to do it again, John, if I could have 30 seconds of your time. August 21st from 5 p.m. To whenever the movie is done at Bakken Park. We do want to thank our two sponsors this year, Ashley and Associates, and Rick and his organization stepped up to help us to be able to provide the movie again at the rugby field. So we will, we're a little bit bigger and better than we were last year. Still going to have the food vendors down there. We have 4 food trucks that are lined up. Sean has Music in the Grove lined up for down there. UW-Madison is going to bring MedFlight, and we also have a Black Hawk helicopter that's going to come from the National Guard. So we'll have 2 helicopters this year, and then again, we'll have the movie. Hopefully it's a little bit warmer than it was last year, so we can get the splash pad up and running and utilize that facility. And then Miracle Field is also going to be out there presenting their field, so everyone can kind of walk through a lot with a lot of local businesses. Again, we're doing this in tandem with the Cottage Grove Chamber of Commerce, so some of the businesses will be out there highlighting their services to the community also. So we ask everyone to come down, enjoy the community night out, talk to anyone, see all the apparatuses that are down there, talk to all the officers, firefighters, EMS, village staff that are down there. We look forward to celebrating that evening.
Thank you, Lieutenant. This weekend, we have market days in the pig parking lot, so that's, if you want to dunk me, get there early. Otherwise, enjoy the rest of if you want to avoid me, that would be nice too. I appreciate that, because the water's cold. No, there's a lot of our commercial folks out there, the fire department's out there, EMS, police. Great time, I think, for everybody, for community to get there, and music as well as food and things for the kids to do. So just put that plug out there for that as well. Anybody have anything else they want to call out? All right. Future agenda items. Matt, anything you want to? Okay, shaking his head. No.
capital prioritization, as a reminder, I'll send a reminder email tonight. Please have the survey completed by the 22nd. The objective would be to have a plan for you to review. Again, very first draft on August 5th. So I do need responses by the 22nd, and that will give me some time to put that plan together. As preparing for that August 5th meeting, as a reminder, this is just a first draft. Come with suggestions, changes. We're not tied to any years recommended. It will just be a first version of the document. I do want to point out that this is the first version of the document that does not have a tax impact tied to it. So after the board approves the plan, that's when we'll turn it around and give it to Ellers, and then they will associate an actual tax impact. You may find it desirable to either add projects once you see what it is, or subtract projects from the plan once you have associated tax figures to the plan. So get ready for a fun night on the 5th. And again, staff are here to support the board with questions on specific projects, the justification, the needs, why things are slated for certain years. So please don't hesitate to reach out. That's what we're here for.
Thank you, Cameron. If there's nothing else, all right, I'll start the rambling on here. I'd like to make a motion that the village board go to the closed session regarding the establishment, negotiating position relative to solid waste and recycling service providers. Village of Cottage Grove Village Board will enter the closed session pursuant to State Statute 19.85, parentheses 1, parentheses E, deliberating and negotiating the purchasing public properties, the investing in public funds, or the conducting of other public or specified public business wherever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Heidi. This is a roll call, so Cindy, please.
Dahl?
Lisa?
Dahl?
Aye, here.
Gage?
Aye.
Cal Nelson? Murphy?
Aye.
Stoa?
Yes.
Valencia?
Aye.
And Williams?
Aye.